fuck if you made the most key passes, wherever the fuck it is. Fuck Hakan.
No, man, Jerry, we are starting the Hakan Calhanoglu campaign here on the Calcio Connection podcast. We are live, my friends. Thank you to those that are in. I am delighting in my Turkish delight, even though Jerry's been talking nothing but shit. We are thrilled to welcome in a special guest from the Italian Football Podcast. It's been way too long since we've spoken with our good friend Carlo Garganese. He's you can't see his face because he's a corporate time-stealing weasel. He's on the corporate computer. So we're going to steal about 10, 15 minutes of Carlo's time, and then he's got to write about the next round of games. So Carlo, without further ado, thank you so much for joining us, my friend. How are you?
Yeah, doing good. Thanks. It's a pleasure to be on here. Sorry you can't see me, but you can see Jerry. That's the most important thing.
Yeah.
It's the most important thing.
With his Lazio shirt, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, man. So Carlo, before Jerry and I, talk too much, I want to get your take on a couple things before we let you get back to work. Inter signing Hakan Calhanoglu. Now, obviously, I don't necessarily know if this happens if not for what happened to Christian Eriksen and, the uncertainty as to whether or not he can play again, let alone play in Serie A again. So, keeping that in mind, that I think Inter did feel pressure to make a move and find a move to make on a free transfer. How should Interisti feel about this move for Calhanoglu?
Well, from Inter's point of view, I think it's a decent signing because, unfortunately, it doesn't look like. I mean, it's not important, but it doesn't look like Christian Eriksen will play again for Inter. So, certainly, I would say this year, and then, who knows? I mean, it doesn't really matter. The most important thing is his health. But it seems to me whether that this is a signing probably to fill the place of Christian Eriksen in the side, unfortunately. And in that sense, for a team that we know Inter have some financial issues. And they can't really afford to go out and spend big money. It's okay. A free transfer is not. It's still got a reasonable salary there, and we don't know what commission there is. But you're not paying a transfer fee for somebody who had good numbers. Has had great numbers for the last 18 months. I mean, he dipped the second half of last season, had a terrible Euros, but this is somebody that scores a lot of goals, creates a lot of goals. Good at set pieces, and you can't really go wrong on a free transfer.
Carlo, how should Milanisti feel? Now, I know that I certainly, the sense that I get is they're not that upset about losing Hakan, but how should they feel about losing him on a free? Because there is certainly a narrative of having lost Donnarumma for no transfer fee, and now having lost Hakan Calhanoglu, no transfer fee. So, how do you think Milanisti should feel from their point of view?
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. All the Milan fans that I know don't seem to be as upset as you'd kind of expect them that they would be to lose a first team player to their their bitter rivals. And he's somebody that does divide the critics at Milan. He is inconsistent. Has been his whole career. The only time he actually had some consistency was in 2020, where he was fantastic in 2020, especially after the lockdown. Maybe the best player in Serie A, is the argument to say, during the calendar year of 2020. But then after, in 2021, he has had a big dip, and he didn't end the season very well, and he's had a terrible Euros along with all the Turkey team. So in that sense, maybe Milan fans are looking at it as, well, he's not worth the money of meeting his financial demands of a new salary. So they feel like, let's let him go and, good riddance to him. But I still think, you're absolutely right. Milan losing two key first team players for nothing, not getting any money back on them. And, on our own podcast earlier, Nima was mentioned a couple of others, Pessina, who Milan let go, and Locatelli as well. Two players who are starring in the Euros who they let go too soon. And you're thinking, Milan's recent record of letting players go hasn't been good. So from that point of view, although I think the Milan project is a good one, and I do feel like they've got the right people in place to replace Donnarumma and to replace Calhanoglu. From a financial point of view, yeah, it's not getting any money, not getting a fee is definitely a big blow and it's hard to take that, I think.
Now, the next question I'll ask you, I'll also ask a similar question to Jerry, since he is our Simone Inzaghi expert. But first with you, Carlo, how could you see Hakan fitting in with a 3-5-2?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's a good question because the 3-5-2 is very different to a 4-2-3-1, because I know some people will say, well, there's not much difference because in a 4-2-3-1 you're playing in the hole as an attacking midfielder, whereas in a 3-5-2 you kind of could be the most advanced of the three central midfielders and kind of fill in a similar role. But I think with a 4-2-3-1 you've got a higher start. Generally, you've got a higher starting position. So I don't know if he's going to be able to adapt to it as well. Jerry's probably the best guy to answer that because he will know exactly positionally where Luis Alberto. I mean, let's pretend that he's going to play the Luis Alberto role for Inter. But also at the same time, we've also seen Inzaghi use a 3-5-1-1, and I still think there's a good possibility that Lautaro could be sold this summer. And they go to a 3-5-1-1, in which case Calhanoglu could be quite well suited for playing the role in behind Lukaku, which is, I think, where Eriksen maybe potentially could have played very well as well. If unfortunately, what's happened. So maybe they're looking at it that he gives them that the chance for a bit of tactical variation. But can he play in a 3-man centre midfield? He maybe might need to improve tactically a little bit like Eriksen did, when he first came, and then he kind of adapted to what Conte was asking for. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see. I think the jury's still a little bit out on that one.
What do you think about the idea of him filling at least trying to fill a Luis Alberto type of role?
I agree with Carlo, actually. That's what I was thinking the first minute that he had joined Inter, is that he will play on the left side behind Lukaku. And he's going to create that kind of tandem that Immobile and Alberto have basically established in the last 4 or 5 seasons in the 3-5-2. Kind of similar player, maybe Carlo would agree that his ability to get passes in behind the defense, that creativity, and I think that's what's going to happen here. Lukaku likes to play in behind the defense. He likes to make those runs. I was reading that he doesn't prefer to have that hold-up play. He doesn't like holding up with the defense. So I think this can really work well to benefit the way he plays with Inter. And Inzaghi, if he is on board with Hakan joining, I think that this is the kind of player he knows that he can get that is similar to Alberto. In order to get Alberto will be impossible because Lotito is not going to want to sell him. So I think Hakan's probably the second best option on a free. I just think the wages are ludicrous considering what their situation is right now. 6 million is a lot of money for him, and I know that he had the most passes completed in like 95 in all competition, but I don't look at one stat in order to justify the kind of player he is. He has scored and he has given assists, but I just don't think I think he's an overrated player personally, but if there's one thing Inzaghi can do, he can get the best out of players.
Now, I want to circle back to Hakan when Nima jumps in, but I want to ask one more thing to Carlo, if I may, before Carlo has to run on the Azzurri, because Carlo, I know you've of course been covering these Euros, been covering the Italian national team. As Jerry and I have both been watching intently, they get through the group stage, not the most difficult of groups, but +7 in goal differential, 0 goals conceded, as smooth sailing as we could have possibly expected. Has this group stage and the way the Azzurri have played, has that changed your expectation for this team? And how far do you think Italy can go?
A little bit, yeah, because I said before the tournament, and I've been saying for the best part of the year, that I think Italy will have a good tournament, a very good tournament. I think that the quarterfinal or semi-final, I was saying before the tournament, that the quarterfinal or the semi-final was very, very doable. But I thought that maybe Italy don't have the world-class attack that, say, France have, for example. Maybe that might see Italy go fall a little bit short. But having said that, having seen Italy in the group stages, they've scored more goals than anybody else. Belgium might overtake them tonight. They haven't conceded any goals. I think as a team, as an actual team, they've been the best team so far. They play as a unit. They move as a unit. They attack and defend as one. There's a great team spirit, great togetherness. Mancini's used 25 of his 26 players already. Everybody feels involved and part of it. Their fitness levels, their energy, their pressing has been unbelievable. If they can keep that up, then you really have to beat them because they will run and run and run and run. And that's great. And we've seen some other teams looking quite tired. So, I mean, really, we couldn't have asked for anything more from Italy so far. And from that, in that sense, I think that, why not? Why can't they go far? The attack is scoring. I think that, Immobile has done well, although a bit like Belotti yesterday, I think he needs to improve his he needs to be a bit more clinical because, there's still kind of one goal in every 3 or 4 chances. We want to get that down to 1 in 2 if Italy are going to win the tournament because you're going to get less chances against the big teams later on. But, we're looking fantastic. We're looking fantastic. And I would say that really, apart from Holland, I don't think there's been any other team that's played more than one good game so far. France looked great in their first game, but then they dipped against Hungary. Germany were poor in their first game, but then looked brilliant against Portugal in their second game. Italy have been consistent so far. And just one final point, one thing I would say, though, is, tournament football, it changes when you get into the knockout stages, when the pressure is on, when... it's in or out, and also the dynamic of the fact that, Italy and also Holland, and also Germany, played all their group games at home with their home crowd behind them. They're basically home games. Yeah. Now it's going to be neutral generally for I think, except for England, everybody's going to be playing on neutral territory for the rest of the tournament. Pretty much.
By the way, have you had any luck getting tickets for the game against Austria? I saw you asking about that on Twitter.
Yeah, I've got some. Yes, I'll be going.
Yes.
Yes. I'm glad I managed to get some because I actually had some already. I had tickets for Italy's second round, quarterfinal, and semi-final game. I had them since the beginning of last year, but then because of coronavirus, UEFA had to reduce the capacity of all the stadiums, and I lost they took my tickets off me, and I was gutted because I got them for a really good price as well. So now I've paid a bit over the odds for the game on. For the game on Saturday, but it's it won't happen again for a while, so it will be good. Hopefully I can watch Italy get a good win and move on to the quarters.
Well, you're gonna watch fucking Ciro Immobile score a goal. I'm calling you right now.
Yeah, to God's ears.
If Immobile scores, I'm gonna take a live picture from the stadium doing the Jerry finger with Immobile.
Well, Carlo, I know you're covering the next game, so we'll let you run. We appreciate your time, and you leave us in good hands because we're going to be joined in a second by Nima, also from the Italian Football Podcast. So thank you so much, Carlo, and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Yeah, thanks, guys, and enjoy Nima going on about Calhanoglu and all this stuff. Yeah.
Love it. Well, that was an accurate prediction because, of course, we're going to get into that. We welcome in Nima Azzurri, also from the Italian Football Podcast and from SempreInter.com. Nima, a whirlwind last 24 hours. I was doing a recording yesterday afternoon about the possibility of Hakan being offered to Inter, and then within a few hours of that, things escalated, and he is on the way. And as I prefaced it with Carlo the same way, I certainly don't know or expect that this would have happened if not for, the horrific thing that happened to Christian Eriksen and his very uncertain future. I would certainly not expect him to play this season, maybe never for Inter and never in Italy again because of the procedure and the ICD that he had implanted in his chest. But so, Inter, they needed to fill a void. Do you think that they addressed this situation the right way by signing Hakan Calhanoglu?
Look, I think your analysis is spot on. I think what you said about him, the reason that he was, the reason that they signed Calhanoglu is undoubtedly because of what happened to Christian Eriksen. There's no doubt about that. And then what Inter did was simply look at the whole situation. So Ericsson makes something like 7 to 9 million euros net. So they that was still a big thing for them. They needed to slash that by 20-30% anyway, their overall wage budget. So they're thinking, okay, well, we got a guy here who's 27 years old, just turned in February, if I'm not mistaken. Turns 27 years old. He's 2-3 years younger than Christian Eriksen. He has played 4 years in the league, so there's no time needed for him to get adapted to the league. He's a player who's obviously not as good as Christian Eriksen, but he costs 6 million net, which is 3-4 million net less per season. That it just ticked all the boxes. Obviously, there's no discussion that Christian Eriksen is a much better football player than Hakan Calhanoglu. There's no discussion there. But in the situation Inter were in, and given that they had a coach who was all in favor of this deal as well, then there was really not much to talk about. It's just this has been the last thing. I mean, with all due respect to Chris, this isn't about him and his health. It's it is a sad situation what happened to him, and it was the last thing that anyone ever wants. But it certainly was the last thing that Inter needed, given what's going on with them financially. And all of a sudden, they found themselves in a situation where they were one man short, and after Simone Inzaghi was so excited about using Christian Eriksen in his system, and it's not been. It's been. I mean, I think this is the ideal solution of all the bad choices and things that could have happened. This was the best thing that could have happened out of all the worst options, and it is what it is. I mean, Hakan Calhanoglu is 27 years old. I don't think he's peaked. I think he's on his way to peaking. I think he's a player who suits Simone Inzaghi really well. He's a player that Simone Inzaghi wanted. It is what it is. I mean, obviously, I would have loved to keep Christian Eriksen forever, because I think he's a fantastic player. But the thing with Eriksen is also this, that even if he does come back to playing football, which we all hope he does, in an ideal solution, if he starts playing football even again for Inter in Italy, even if all of those things that we all hope happens, the earliest that can happen is in January. That's half the season gone already, and Inter can't find themselves in a situation like that, so they needed to act. And given what happened to Christian Eriksen, and given the circumstances surrounding his absence, most of those wages will be covered by FIFA via insurance payments. So Inter had to look to the future. It's as simple as that. I mean, if we find ourselves in a situation in January, I mean, if all the good things that we all hope for happens, and Christian Eriksen is back on his feet, he's allowed to play again in Italy, blah, 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 well, then he's a new signing in January for Inter then.
Yeah, it's very well said, because Jerry, I fully admit, like Nima said, it's obvious Hakan is not the player Christian Eriksen is when healthy, and I don't think that this even happens if not for an act of God and the awful thing that happened to Eriksen. This is the reality of the situation, that Inter were able to get a replacement who does have 4 years experience playing in Serie A. They were able to get him without a transfer fee, but like you've pointed out, Jerry, the wages are certainly not cheap. So, and I love, by the way, Jerry, you have managed to masterfully upset some Interisti and some Milanisti today with your tweets. I mean, beautiful stuff. But what do you think of, before we get to the Milan perspective, where they've now seen a couple of players, who were pretty important to the project last year? leave on free transfers. Jerry, your thought on the Inter side of it? Because again, I mean, I don't think that they make a move for Hakan if not for what happened to Eriksson. But do you dislike this move from Inter, or do you think they did what they had to do here?
It's a free transfer. At the end of the day, you're not spending 25 million, or you're not spending 60 million to get Luis Alberto. That's what you have to look at here. You're not spending a significant amount of money that you don't have to buy him. You're getting him for 5 million plus add-ons. We don't know if he'll even get the add-ons, if he meets those requirements or not. So we don't even know what that is. So let's just be realistic right now. He's actually making 5 million per season. And then after that, I don't like him personally. I don't like him as a player because every time I watch him with Milan, he just one good game, he shows up, and then there's 3 bad games where he needs to show up and he doesn't. Specifically, the second last game of the season versus Cagliari, he was invisible, like not to be seen. Euros, big games, doesn't show up. Like, this is the problem with this guy, is he never shows up in the most important games. One thing I will say, and I'll continue to say, is that Inzaghi can turn careers around. And when I say that, it doesn't mean that he's a bad player and all of a sudden he needs someone to save him. He can bring him to another level. He did it with Alberto. He did it with Immobile. And look at Savic. Savic is playing at a much higher level now because of Inzaghi. Manuel Lazzari playing very well as a wing back. Look, he converted Maricic from a wing back to a center back and flourished magnificently in the back end. He created a tandem between Alberto and Immobile, like I said earlier, and they're probably one of the best duels in football, aside from maybe up front with Lautaro and Lukaku. So if there's one strength of Inzaghi, he knows how to get the best out of players. And this has to be an Inzaghi signing as well. I don't think he'd be against having Hakan, and he probably knows that having a guy like Hakan is probably similar to a guy like Luis Alberto, and he can use him to similar strengths. So,
for me, I think I agree with everything you just said there. I think the only reason that the way I look at it is this: that look, Luis Alberto is a far better player than Hakan Calhanoglu. That's my personal opinion. But let's remember that Luis Alberto was not the player he is today when he arrived at Lazio. Same again, what you said about Marušić, Milinković-Savić, Immobile, all the Correa, etc. That's what Inzaghi does. He improves players. Mm-hmm. He gets the best out of them. He builds a system where they thrive and he gets the best out of them. I have no doubts that he will do that with Hakan Calhanoglu as well. How well that is, how good that will go, God knows. I mean, look, Calhanoglu has had, what we do know is that the last 18 months, Calhanoglu has been phenomenal for Milan overall. There's no doubt about that. So his star is rising. It took him, I think he's the kind of player who needs a couple of years to get adapted to the league and environment. I don't think he'll need that time at Inter. I think there's no, Inzaghi's going to fix this within, I think he's going to hit the ground running because of Inzaghi. So I agree with you 100% there, Jerry. I think with the Luis Alberto comparison, yes, they do play a little bit from the left. They do have similar traits. They are different players. I think Luis Alberto is far superior technically and in terms of creativity and vision. Hakan's a much more direct player. And it's quite clear for me based on how, everyone who's ever followed me knows how much I love Simone Inzaghi and have for 4 years since he took over Lazio. He's a much more direct coach in his approach tactically. And I think Calhanoglu, the reason why I think he jumped at that chance is because it allows him to play more direct. Inter will be a much more direct team under Simone Inzaghi than they were under the genius ideologue of Antonio Conte, who and his Calcio Verticale, who it was fantastic football. It's probably the best football I've ever seen Inter play in my lifetime, if I'm perfectly honest. That was, that's they're completely different coaches. But Inter are going to be a much more direct team. They already know how to counterattack. And I think Inter are going to hurt a lot of teams. And again, Calhanoglu, Eriksson, we don't know what's going to happen. So I can't even count on him until at least January. I don't think we'll know anything about his future until January, earliest. So I don't even count at that. The rest is okay. So no one wants to buy Lautaro. A lot of people want to buy Hakimi. Everyone would prefer to sell Lautaro over Hakimi.
Yes.
But it's not going to happen. And we can't blame them too much, because at the end of the day, it's a buyer's market as much as it's a seller's market sometimes. And there's nobody here that wants to buy him. So what are you going to do? You got to cash in. You're in the situation you are. So it is what it is.
Yeah, I want real quick, Jerry. Sorry, I want to pick up on that point Nima just made, because I try and spread that message, something he just said, every single day when I talk to Interisti on Twitter and in person, because they're always saying what Nima just said. Wait, how come we're selling Hakimi and we're not selling Lautaro Martinez? And the answer is very simple. You are getting concrete offers for Hakimi that you're not getting from Lautaro. You can't go back to last year and say, hey, remember that time Barcelona may have been agreeing to 111 million euro valuation, and then they weren't even offering that. They were offering you a couple of shit players at inflated valuations plus 40 million cash. Now no one's giving you a 90, 100 million offer for Lautaro, but you are getting offers that could be, in the 70 million range, 60 to 70 million range, and you're trying to get more than that. For Hakimi, you're not getting those from Lautaro. So it's very simple. Like you said, Nima, buyer's market, and Inter need to sell. So they are in a situation where they cannot keep the entire squad intact from last year. I know that's something Antonio Conte wanted, but they couldn't deliver on that. We can't keep the entire squad intact. We have to make a sacrifice. And I'm sure it's not a tactical decision. I'm sure that they didn't sit down with Simone Inzaghi and say, hey, how we have this 22-year-old generational right wing back. Why don't we get rid of this guy? No, I'm sure it wasn't a tactical decision. It's, hey, we have to sacrifice somebody. This is the guy we're getting offers for. So very well said. Go ahead, Jerry.
I also want to say that he'll be playing in a better midfield as well. Like, he'll be complemented by better players. So that is another thing. That's another thing.
Thank you.
I didn't even think about that.
So glad you brought that up. That was exactly going to be my next point. Look, Hakan Calhanoglu, Inter aren't building their team around Hakan Calhanoglu. He's coming to a team of a midfield where Brozovic, Sensi, Barella are already there. He's going to have Lukaku and Lautaro to play off of. So he's coming to an already kind of a set table, where he's going to be one of the spices to the stew, if you know what I mean, that Simone Inzaghi's cooking. He's not going to be the main course. He's just one of the spices. The main course is Lukaku, it's Bastoni, it's Barella.
I don't agree with that. I actually don't agree with that. I think
let me read the comment real quick for those just listening to the audio. My buddy Brooklyn Rob, who for those watching, you see he's a Juventino. He says, "Enjoy your 1 year at the top. Won't see the Scudetto again for another 5 years." Do you think it? I don't know if he's wrong, Jerry. Do you think he's wrong?
I think he's wrong. You guys don't. Everybody underestimates Simone Inzaghi.
Exactly.
Other than Nima, am I the only guy who rates this guy as a great manager? I don't blind my Lazio love because he left the club.
You and our buddy Nando.
I fucking love him. Yeah. I've rated him through poor and good. People don't understand. Like, when it's bad, it's not bad because of him. It's bad because our team is so shit. We have nobody to call off the bench. I think people forget that, man. This guy worked miracles. I was writing an article about him today for Super Mandarina, and I was writing why this is a good signing. Other than the fact that he does a 3-5-2, this guy performed miracles with no depth. This guy has a team now where he can call players off the bench and rely on a plan B, a plan C. He never had that in his life. So you're going to see a whole different ball game where he is going to be more tactically minded. He is going to consider rotating guys when he has to. I don't think he'll be as stubborn as Conte. I think he will go to his deck of cards and say, hey, I will bring the player.
No, he's not stubborn at all. Conte was stubborn. This guy is much more pragmatic. I think he showed that at Lazio, how pragmatic he is. I wrote, I don't know if I sent it to you, but I wrote a piece 3.5 years ago in 2017 autumn for the now defunct Calciomercato English site, where literally named Lazio Simone Inzaghi is the next Italian super coach after Antonio Conte. That was 3.5 years ago. This is my firm belief. He is the next Italian super coach. He is so tactically skilled and drilled. He's so careful and meticulous. He's not a tactical genius like Antonio Conte, but neither is Carlo Ancelotti, neither was Fabio Capello. Arrigo Sacchi was the tactical visionary and the genius. You don't need to be a tactical genius, but in order to win titles and hoard titles. But Jose Mourinho is not a tactical genius. He's just a very well prepared coach who prepares meticulously and knows his job. You know what I mean? So it's not like, for me, Simone Inzaghi is the next Italian super coach, and I'm so happy that he's going to Inter to prove it. And above all, I mean, if he were to win something with Inter next season, if he were to repeat winning the Scudetto this, I mean, that's the beginning of his fantastic career. I just hope that they keep Federico Di Marco, that they, I don't think anyone is coming in for Valentino Lazaro, so it is what it is. I hope they don't extend the contract with Alexander Kolarov, even if it's at half his wages, which is being rumored now widely.
I don't want any part of that.
Yeah, I don't want any part of that as well. I hope he goes to Bologna or to his friend Sinisa Mihailovic. They're great friends. So no, it's I mean, I think if with Calhanoglu in and Eriksson not being on the books for at least for 6-7 months, that's the best situation you could have hoped for given this situation. Now for the rest, I'm hoping Inter. I don't know what to believe, because I see credible reports saying that Inter are negotiating with Chelsea for Marcos Alonso and 60-70 million for Hakimi. That's okay, Marcos Alonso. I would have preferred him under Antonio Conte.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm getting with Simone Inzaghi. I still think that I'd rather strengthen the right hand side. I'd rather sell for 80-90 million and go to Lazio and take Lazzari. I'd rather do that, cash in on that, and especially with Sarri at Lazio. I don't see how Lazzari fits into Sarri's system unless you want to place Lazzari as a winger, which I know Maurizio Sarri does not want to do. So that, I mean, that would be a solution. I prefer that solution, but it's going to be a very interesting mercato. I think one thing is for certain, that Inter will not let anyone leave unless they're happy with the bid. Yeah. That's for sure. That's Suning. That's just how they operate. And I think even if they bring in someone to the left, I hope, given that Perisic only has 1 year left on his contract and he has a big salary, that's a guy that I think they will be looking to sacrifice together with João Mario and Raja Nainggolan, who I think is just a matter of time before they leave.
And with Nainggolan, I mean, we keep seeing the same issues. His wages right now, he's making Inter wages, but he wants to play for Cagliari, and you can't expect to be making Inter wages on Cagliari if it's a permanent move. I think he's making 3.5 million euros net, if I'm not mistaken. So, Nima, how do they resolve this? Because, Cagliari obviously do not want to, or maybe completely unwilling to pay those wages. So does Nainggolan need to make a sacrifice, or is there a way to settle this?
Yes, he does.
I agree.
Yes,
I agree.
He does. He needs to make a sacrifice because he's not going to play at Inter. It's not working at Inter. And if he loves his Cagliari, then, make the sacrifice. It's easier to say when you're not in his shoes, but at the same time, Inter, he has been paid. I think it's 1 year left, and we're talking what Cagliari could do is offer him the same value of the contract, but over a longer period of time. Obviously, they don't want to do that because it's a huge financial commitment. But it is. I mean, we'll have to wait and see. I think Inter still have to pay them for Barella. There are installments there. So I mean, I think Marotta's got this. If I'm perfectly honest, I think he's the master negotiator. I think he will see what they say, and I think they will find a solution.
I wanted to ask Nima before we get into some Azzurri stuff, a little bit of Lazio. I know Jerry will be happy because
I want to pick Nima's brain though.
Go ahead,
because the wing back situation, you guys know better. If there's one position that Inzaghi really values, it's the wing back position. And the problem is, if he doesn't have a plan B, that's where he becomes vulnerable, and he'll overcommit to the same player and start playing players out of position. And that happened at Lazio, where he played Marisic on the left side, and he consistently used Lazzari on the right side. And as the season progressed, injuries kind of lead up, and he just didn't have another option. And like what happened? He put Maricic into the back because he kind of panicked, was using Lulic at left side, not the same player he once was. It was a big, big weakness. And I just think that if you guys don't have strong wing backs, that kind of could really hurt Inzaghi. That's one flaw I kind of notice with him in managing. So, like, what is your right side like? And I think that Lazaro can really turn his career around under Inzaghi. I think it's possible.
I'm not so convinced because I think Valentino Lazaro is way too much of some trolling for Jerry there, but no, for me, Valentino Lazaro is a player who he's a Premier League, La Liga player. He doesn't, especially in that wing back role, you have to be very, it took Achraf Hakimi a long time before Antonio Conte beat it into him about positioning and reading the game. Valentino Lazaro, to me, just doesn't have that ability. I think he's good at attacking wise, but he's not defensively sound. And in the Serie A, you cannot, when you play a 3-5-2, you will be destroyed. You can't leave an entire wing, exposed. And I mean, I hope I'm wrong. I really do, because Inter spent a lot of money on this guy. But if it turns out that they can't sell, I mean, Inzaghi's been very clear. He wants most of these guys at the preseason training camp to see what he can do with them. I hope that he puts his foot down and says Di Marco's not going anywhere. Because Di Marco and Darmian, the good thing with Di Marco and Darmian is that both of them can play to the left of the back three as well. Darmian better than Di Marco. If you also find a way to sell Ivan Perisic to a Bundesliga side for whatever 5-10 million euros, that's a huge salary that lifts as well. Then if you can sell Hakimi and bring in someone like if you can sell Hakimi for 70-80 million and then maybe bring Kostic in for using Lazaro as a part payment of that to bring down the fee, then all of a sudden you got you got a left hand side with Di Marco and Kostic, and then you've got on the right hand side you got Darmian, and you need someone else, and then Zappacosta. I would not be against that, to have Zappacosta and Darmian on the right hand side if your left hand side is Di Marco and Kostic. I don't have a problem with that at all. So I mean, you're just basically changing flanks from Hakimi to the right, but obviously Inter had two good flanks, and I think Zappacosta can do a good job for Inter still in the Serie A. He was really good for Genoa last season, and he's a good Serie A player, and I think he'll do okay. I'm not giving up on him already.
What's your hold on? So without deals, because I don't believe in the transfer market until it's official, because there's just too much freaking bullshit rumors. I've noticed now. It just drives me nuts. What is your wing back position right now going into the season?
Right now, Di Marco's back. It's Perisic. It's Lazaro's coming back. It's Darmian, and it's Hakimi. And let me see if I forgot. And Kolarov, of course. But whatever.
Ashley Young.
Actually, no, he's gone to Aston Villa.
It's gone. Okay.
Yeah, it's been made official. I mean, it's that's where we are. I mean, it's a little bit, it's a little bit, kind of, catch-22 right now at Inter. So they have to.
They really need somebody to replace Hakimi, or at least half of what he can do. Because that you take out Hakimi, and your wing backs are all of a sudden are very. It is a vulnerable position, in my opinion, like on both sides. That's just the way I look at it. You really do need Di Marco to stay, because if Di Marco leaves too, that's a big drop off in wing backs, and I see this right now happening where. He's going to overcommit to the two same players all season on the right and left side. I see Inzaghi doing this because that's just the way he is. He has this trust issue that if he falls out with Lazaro, he's going to just go Darmian and Perisic, and that's it. Every game. I see this happening. I don't know why.
That's why we got to hope he has options. I mean, we hope he has options beyond those two.
Yeah.
Now, one thing I'm excited about is that it seems that Alexis Sanchez is staying. I think he
Yes.
can do something with what's his name, with Inzaghi, and I think that there's I'm not quite ready to. I still think that we'll, at the end of the day, we'll see Caicedo at Inter, and I think he's a low option, like a low cost option. That I think is good for Inter, given that I don't think, Lazio don't want him to stay and all that stuff, and he doesn't really suit how Sarri wants to play. And if I'm not sure, I can't remember, Jerry, you know this better than me, but when does his contract expire? Is it in a year?
Next summer.
Yeah, next summer. So I think, I don't mind having Caicedo as a backup to Lukaku. We already know that if Lautaro is staying, since no one's buying him, Lautaro and Alexis Sanchez together, that works, So that means that you can play a three. You can still kind of play the 3-5-2, but I think it'll be more like a 3-4-2-1, with Lautaro and Alexis kind of going between the lines as they do, and Lukaku being that sole number 9. I think we're going to see that more, and then I think someone like Calhanoglu will play in that number 10 role, or a little bit similarly to Luis Alberto, a little bit more further in between the number 10 and the number 8 role, kind of thing.
Real quick, Nima, you've touched on it a little bit with Sarri's arrival at Lazio, but it's something we hadn't dove deep with you into. We talked to you a lot on chat, but you haven't been on the pod in a little bit.
No,
since Sarri to Lazio was official. Of course, I've seen Jerry on my timeline with a cigarette in his mouth. It's just a wonderful, wonderful time to be alive. So. What is your thought, Nima, on Sarri at Lazio and how the personnel could fit with his formation?
I think that Maurizio Sarri to Lazio is one of the most exciting things ever. I love it because Maurizio Sarri was one step away from taking over Roma. Instead, he goes to Lazio. You have Mourinho at Roma. I mean, those derbies alone between those two, the beforehand and during and after, is going to be delicious for the neutrals, as well as, I think, the fans. It's two very polarizing and divisive people, but in a kind of good way. Their fans love them and their adversaries hate them, which is exactly how it should be, to make a good derby. Then having said that, I think you have to find a way to he has to find a way to get these players. I mean, I don't see Correa working in Lazio now, because even if he plays a 4-3-1-2 or a 4-3-3, then he doesn't suit his system, I think. So the Lazio will need wingers for sure. I think I saw something about Hisai being close to Lazio. I think that's a brilliant move for them. I think that's a Sarri guy. He understands what Sarri wants. But then I'm thinking, well, what are you going to do with Lazzari? Are you going to play him as a winger? Because I don't think he works as a winger. I think he's a wing back. He's good when he comes with speed. Wingers have to be able to do their men and dribble their men without any speed and space to attack. I don't see that with Lazzari. I don't see he has those traits, but I could be wrong. But Lazio definitely have to do something. They have a lot of business to do. I think the midfield trio of Lukas Leiva, Milinkovic-Savic, and Luis Alberto that's perfectly fine. Not much needed there. Acerbi, is a good defender. You need to the defense needs to be sorted centrally, and wingers. And Lazio have players to sell, to bring in cash to reinvest. They do. They really do. If you could cash in on Lazzari, Correa, Caicedo, that's 40, 50, 60 million right there that you can actually buy good players with that suit your system.
Well, I saw a report today, I think it was Padula, that they're no longer going to be selling Correa. And it seems like he'll be part of the plan. And actually, it's funny you said that, because I actually wrote an article last week, which I haven't released yet, and basically why I think Correa should stay with Lazio. Firstly, you take him out, who provides goals now? He in the last 3 seasons, he's been the second most consistent scorer behind Immobile. You take him out, you got to have somebody who can provide the goals behind Immobile, because that's always been the issue, is that where will they get secondary scoring behind them? When he played at Sevilla, I actually looked up his previous formations, and he played in a 4-2-3-1 as a left winger. And I think that kind of benefits him. He was able to play 26 La Liga matches, and during that season, the 2017-18, he provided 4 goals and 1 assist in just over 1,300 minutes. So I looked at his on transfer market, his positioning, and during Sevilla, he played left wing primarily. So he does have that kind of background experience from his previous clubs.
He does. But playing as a winger in La Liga is a completely different thing than Serie A. And I think that's basically what I mean. I mean, I do think that it depends. If Sarri wants to play a 4-3-1-2, well, then then Correa is a shoo-in for one of those roles, either as a number 10 role or as one of the two. He can do both. He's really, really good at that. But does he want to? It depends. It completely depends on what he wants to do.
I think he goes with the 4-3-1-2 for one reason. In order to go to the 4-3-3, it's just a major overhaul in one summer. Yeah. I've been saying this from the beginning. I agree that the 4-3-3 will happen, and I think I tweeted this out a few weeks ago, and a person actually was commenting on me, and I was saying, well, if you want wingers, you need 4 wingers. We don't have 4 wingers. You need 2 on the right, 2 on the left. We're far away from that. You need fullbacks. That's the most important thing first. Before you even can get to the wingers, you need your fullbacks, because a back 4 is the guarantee of the whole formation. There is no ifs, ands, or buts. That's your primary. That's your target for the summer. You got to get your defense first before you can even think about going to the 4-3-3. And we are far away from that. The one guy who I do believe, I agree with you, is gone from here, is the more I think about it, is Manuel Lazzari. Can he play as a right?
I just don't see how he suits. I really don't. And I think it's a shame, because I think he was brilliant at Lazio.
He was, no question.
The price tag for him is 25 million. Apparently, that's what Latito has put on him. I don't know if you're going to get 25 million for him.
But that's the thing. This is where I'm thinking that Sarri's smart in this sense. I mean, so if you keep Correa, you keep that midfield, you have a very strong midfield, and then you have to have someone next to Immobile if you're going to play a 4-3-1-2. Okay, so do you play Correa as a secondary striker? Who do you play as a trequartista then? Do you bring in Jovetic, which has been rumored, but he's always been a little bit injured? Do you know what I mean? And he doesn't exactly help track back, and not really good at putting pressure, and the high press that Sarri does. So you still need to fill. Okay, do you start with Murici? He could use him as a target, but that's not something that Sarri's known of doing. He wants technical players and can run and put high press. So I don't see how Murici do you know what I mean? There are quite a few questions. And also, okay, now that you've got Hysaj, if you get Hysaj, okay, do you play him on the left where he's not good, or do you play him on the right? If you play him on the left, well, then you have to get rid of Lazzari, because Lazzari in a back 4 just doesn't work. Or alternatively, you buy 2 central defenders next to Acerbi, one on the left and one in the middle, and you play the same way that Italy did, or Mourinho did with Maicon when Kivu was the left back. You had or Milan do with Calabria and Theo Hernandez, whereas you have one player marauding as a wing back, even though he plays in a back 4, and the remaining 3 kind of go into like an inverted back 3, if you get what I mean. So there's a lot of questions to be answered, and I hope for Lazio's sake they answer them, because they have a fantastic coach. They have a great coach, and they can really surprise teams. I mean, if they were to get someone, if they brought in Jovetic, and if they got rid of some of their, unwanted players, and they were able to strengthen defensively, Lazio with Sarri is going to be quite a team to watch.
I have a question. I was thinking about this when I was writing the article. Can you have Correa and Immobile up top and Alberto behind them? Does that work? Because he has played that role before.
You absolutely could.
That's what I was thinking. That's my first theory, is that you keep a happy Alberto, because he wants to play high up the pitch, and his defensive ability sucks. I'll be honest. Oh my God, it's not great at all. But when he makes a tackle, give him an applause. But I would start with Correa and Immobile up top. And another question is too, right?
Who do you have in the number 10 then? Luis Alberto?
Yeah. That's who you
Okay,
do.
well, okay. So you have Marušić in the mid in the like. Where do you fit him? Do you fit him centrally next to Leva and Milinkovic Savic?
You could do that. I don't see why not on the right side. Yeah,
Yeah,
you could do that.
because then you have a 4-3-1-2. That's a Sarri team, and it's more than
Yeah.
a 4-3-1-2. It's more a 4-3-2-1.
Yeah.
In my opinion, and it's really interesting. We'll see. I mean, but again, Lazio's depth problem has always been the depth, and that's what they need to do.
Want to get into some Italian national team before, and I think, Jerry, you can confirm this. You did promise us we could close this episode later with a Jerry story. Am I correct on that?
Yes.
Would that be okay?
You promise. You promise.
You promise, because I know Carlo, who was on with us at the beginning, I'm sure he wishes he could have been on long enough to hear
I
it.
know
He had
he
to get
does.
back to work. At least allow Nima a little bit later to hear a Jerry story. Is that possible?
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, so I want to get to the Italian national team, and as my buddy Brooklyn Rob pointed out here, and he told me about this before the tournament started, he did lock in a futures bet before the group stage began on the Azzurri at plus 750 to win the Euros. Now, if you were to place that bet now through the group stage, they're at plus 500. So I think Brooklyn Rob surely placed it at the right time, because I thought Italy were a little bit undervalued, very undervalued heading into the tournament. And the hardest work is yet still to come. They may be seeing Belgium in the quarterfinal. We know they're seeing Austria coming up in the round of 16, which should be an Azzurri win, barring a choke job. But guys, let's talk a little bit about what we saw throughout the group stage, especially the Wales match from the other day, Nima, because of course there was heavy squad rotation. And I thought even the Azzurri's backups did really, really well. We saw the welcome back for Verratti, who, man, I know there was some debate. Some people went with Chiesa. I thought Verratti arguably was my man of the match. I thought he was really dynamic. And yeah, Locatelli had a great impact in the prior match against Switzerland, scoring twice. But I just think Verratti had so much more quality. Do you think, Nima, he's got to be Verratti a starter moving forward?
Yeah, I think it's undoubtedly so that's going to happen. Even though as amazing as Manuel Locatelli has been, it's quite clear that when we saw Marco Verratti against Switzerland, the class is just, it's other level. Locatelli isn't there yet in his maturity and his intelligence and read of the game. Locatelli is a fantastic player, and it just goes to show how deep of a squad, especially in midfield, Italy have. But Marco Verratti just showed to me against Wales the class that he possesses, the intelligence, the decision making, the creativity, how he creates things from tight spaces that no one else can see and don't do. There's no doubt in my mind that Jorginho, Verratti, and Barella is the midfield trio. I mean, it's just, Amen. It just is. And I think Chiesa, I think this is the ideal solution for Mancini. He's already used 24 out of 26 players. He wants them all fresh, and that's going to be important for a long tournament. And you're playing every 3-4 days. You need to have fresh legs. And already against Wales, he changed 8, 9, 10 players. He played again 24 out of 26 players. A lot of them were rested. So they go into this game against Austria now, if I'm not mistaken. It's Austria. Yeah. And he's got pretty much a full squad to pick from. A healthy squad where everyone's scoring. Locatelli scoring, Pessina scoring. I mean, I said going into this European Championship that Italy's goals are going to come from the midfield. Well, they're all coming from the midfield now. A few from Immobile, but mostly from the midfield. Yeah. And that's where the goals are supposed to come from for Italy, given the midfield they have. So I'm not, I just cannot see how he benches Verratti, and I expect Chiesa to play as well more. I really do.
Jerry, it's something I haven't turned on the Belgium.
Lukaku just almost scored. Almost. He almost scored. I was offside anyway.
It reminds me, I've got to turn the TV on in my background. Jerry, I feel like I'm living in another dimension when I look at the numbers and the form that the Italian national team have been on now. 30 games unbeaten, 11 straight wins with 11 straight clean sheets. I mean, and again, I know that the toughest matchups in this tournament are yet to come, and if they want to try and win these Euros, they're going to have to be tested severely. You know, if they get through Austria to win this tournament, you're going to have to get through the likes of Belgium, France, Germany, the Netherlands, who are looking very, very good over their last couple of matchups. So certainly Euro 2020 is going to be no cakewalk, but Roberto Mancini has this group playing as a unit, and he's got them flying, quite frankly, and they're not conceding. And it's even like you look at the work or lack thereof that Donnarumma has to do in net. I mean, this guy at times, he can just lay out a lounge chair and just relax. I mean, he's not facing a lot of dangerous chances because the defense has just been so solid. So do you agree, Jerry, with the conversation, Verratti over Locatelli, and do you think Chiesa is the answer at right wing moving forward?
I'm actually going to throw a curveball. I'm going to go Bastoni has to start on Saturday alongside Bonucci. That's where I'm going to go. And coming from a Lazio fan where people are going to be like, well, what about Azzurri? Azzurri hasn't been good this year. He's been decent, not superb to what he was the season prior. And what really hurt him down the latter part of the season was against Roma when he continued to play hurt, and he should have came off in a meaningless game. And I don't think he's ever recovered fully from his injury. He came back. He arrived with the Azzurri not 100%. Didn't get that training he was supposed to. He kind of looked really rusty yesterday. He got burned down the wing. I'm not sure if you guys remember that. He lost positioning, almost got beat, and that was a good chance for Wales that could have scored, but it was a recovery. I thought Bastoni looked really mature yesterday. He showed really good presence in the back. He was physical, and I think the biggest thing he did was take out Gareth Bale. And
I thought it was a great performance from him.
I know that Bale is not the player he once was, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, but Bale is always Bale, and he can always perform at any time. He can always provide that goal. He's a game changer. And for Bastoni to come in such a difficult situation to replace a guy like Giorgio Chiellini is never an easy task to do. I thought he asserted him very well, and coming in the second half was Acerbi, and he did even better than Acerbi and provided that leadership that many have always probably questioned or thought, can Bastoni do it at such a young age? And I think this is the guy who has to start moving forward. I know people are going to think, is Chiellini going to come back? I honestly think he's done for this tournament. And if he's not, he probably has 45 minutes in him for a game, nowhere near to playing 90 minutes probably. I could be wrong, but I really liked what I saw from Bastoni. And as for Verratti, yes, I tweeted it out today, Verratti's your guy. Mm-hmm. And Nima said it perfect. You got a guy who has leadership, who understands how to play in that role. And he's got the experience as well. Oh, he doesn't really have the experience, unfortunately, because he's always been injured and hasn't been able to play at such a big level. But playing in Champions League on a consistent basis, playing in big games like that, I think also helps him and has allowed him to play at such a higher level as compared to Locatelli, who's only played at Serie A level and doesn't have that European competition experience. I think it helps a lot of these players. The last thing is, do you start Chiesa or do you start Berardi?
I think Chiesa, more quality.
I agree with that. There's two. I agree. Chiesa was my man of the match yesterday. And I know I saw the stats. I didn't even know about the stats until afterwards. I love what Chiesa did yesterday. His speed, his intensity, his ability to get behind the defense. I'm just scared because Insigne, Immobile, and Berardi have built this really good chemistry up front. And it's gotten the best out of Immobile in every game that they've played together. Do you break up something that is working well for your number 9, or do you go to Chiesa and just go with the best winger? Like it's there's two sides to it. I find it's very difficult. Does it break it up? Who knows? If you had to choose without looking at that, I say yes, Chiesa is the better option over Berardi, but I don't know, man. That's a difficult decision to really make compared to what you're picking between Verratti and Locatelli.
Yeah, that's an easy one. I mean, any Nima, any parting shot on that to what Jerry said, that I think we all can agree that Chiesa is the higher quality player over Berardi, but is there an argument to be made for the chemistry that Berardi has with Immobile?
I think, excuse me. I think for me, Berardi, there's a reason why. I think there's a reason why he's played Berardi in the beginning of the tournament, and it just makes perfect sense to me. Why he started that, because because of what Berardi offers, cutting in from the left, and tactically makes sense when you have Di Lorenzo on the right as well. It just makes sense. But moving on, the thing with moving forward, you need someone who can give you an unpredictability. Federico Chiesa is good in the air. He can shoot with both right and left. He can run. He can do you for pace. He can do you for technique. He can do his man in so many different ways, and so many different different ways that he can do that. Running past his man, dribbling past his man, things that Berardi is a little bit more of a one-trick pony. So that's why I would start with Chiesa moving on, because the level of players and the level of the adversaries is just difficult, more and more difficult, and you need players with individual brilliance as you go along. So that's what I want. That's why I think Chiesa should play. For the rest, I mean, it depends on the opponent. I think Austria, when you have Austria, I think that's a team that Italy should beat regardless of if it's Chiesa or Berardi. So, no, I expect Italy to qualify easily and fairly simply to the quarterfinals without any hassle or problems or anything.
By the way, I mentioned Brooklyn Rob locked in the Azzurri plus 750 before the tournament. Anthony Scanga actually had locked them in at plus 800. So we've got a couple of individuals in this chat who I'm going to be hitting up for money if Italy do manage to win this tournament. I know who to borrow from. And before we wrap up this episode,
hold on, I want to say something. As much as we want these changes to be made, I want minimal changes to be made at the same time, because you don't want to break up what has been working.
Yeah,
and I think it was on your pod, Nima, where you guys said that there was a 1 Euros where we changed the whole squad in the third game. I think it was under Arrigo Sacchi.
Sacchi, it was Arrigo Sacchi in Euro 96, and it was the second game where what's his name? It was the second game where against Russia, I think, or was it the Czech Republic? I can't remember. But because it was a really, really long time ago. But it was the second game, because they drew against Germany, because Germany was in that group as well, and Italy missed a penalty. Gianfranco Zola did. But no, either way, yeah. He did that in the second group stage around, and Italy lost that game, and then they were knocked out of the tournament in Euro 96. So yeah, but this was different. This was the last game, and they didn't, they already qualified for the second round, and it was just about winning the group. But I mean, having said that, it's important in these tournaments to have all your players fit and going. And 24 out of 26 teams, zero. I mean, Italy is the first team to have won in European Championship history to have won all three group stage games without even conceding a goal. And he's done so with using 24 out of 26 players. It's brilliant.
It really is. Jerry, before we wrap it up, my friend, we're going to bring back an oldie but a goodie. Do you have one of your – do you even have any left? Do you have a Jerry story for Nima?
I do. Although I don't want to jump off the Azzurri thing yet, because I have so many things in my head, and Nima's here. I'll end it up with Ciro Immobile, because and I love to hear Nima's take. Do you think that this guy can – be the guy in the next four? Well, just say in the next 4 games, because that's what's remaining. Is he the guy that can finally take the Azzurri to the next level? Because what I saw, the one player who I was kind of pretty disappointed with Belotti yesterday, I didn't see much, in my opinion. Maybe the service wasn't great that he got, but I wasn't farly wowed by him, as opposed to Immobile, where I really think that Mancini has really elevated his game to another level. as the more he's played under Mancini, Immobile has evolved into a new player. A lot of people want to say, "Hey, this guy doesn't provide goals. This guy doesn't provide goals." But let's be realistic. I thought that when he wasn't on the ball against Switzerland and against Turkey, he was just as effective. His hold-up play was great. He came down low to help the defense, broke up passes. His intensity is bar none amazing. On the attack, he's not selfish. He'll look for the outlet pass like he did with Insigne. Made a brilliant pass in the first game against Turkey. Got him down the wing. This is a guy who has helped in so many different areas, and I think he gets a little too over-criticized now because people are thinking, okay, if Immobile doesn't score, we fail. But it's not just Immobile. Like you just said yourself, Immobile is not the only driving force to this. It's even the midfield. And the midfield is the biggest strength, and they're scoring goals, and it's allowing Immobile to play more freely, more comfortably, like he does with Lazio in a 3-5-2. So for me, I think he will continue to be strong and dominant against Austria and whoever is next. I think this is the striker that Mancini is going to depend on fully every game, even if it goes into extra time, 120 minutes. This is his guy going forward. I'm really impressed, not because I'm a Lazio fan, because I just think that he has really kind of adjusted playing in a 4-3-3 and is looking better and better every game. So I think that he'll have a good game on Saturday against Austria. And the biggest thing is that scoring in the first two games really helped him because it really boosts his confidence.
I agree.
I mean, I was a little bit disappointed by Belotti as well. I thought there were a couple of chances where I expected him to do better on, but it's quite clear that Immobile is Italy's number one. So yeah, it's quite clear that it's that's what they're going after. That's what he's going to do, and I think that's probably the right decision to move forward given what we've seen. But yeah, no, I think Immobile has been great. I think Immobile, he made a few mistakes, one big one in the second game, missed his absolute sitter, but where you expect him to score. But other than that, I think he's been faultless. I think, the minor mistakes are not big issues. I think he does a lot of work that people don't recognize, such as the first press. That's something that he's never really been that good at, but he's been excellent. And I think that's what you mean when you say that he's evolved under Mancini, because his ability to that first press and to press high up and as a cohesive unit, he's the first player that does that in this team, and he's done it excellently so far. So I'm not surprised. All
right, I'm done. Now I can go to Jerry's story.
Story time?
Yeah, now
I've been waiting all week for this, man. Waiting all week.
Which story? Okay, I'll tell the one where when I told you guys offline that I flooded the toilet at one of my stores. So it was I believe it was a Friday, and I was at my Loblaws, and I go to this upstairs, and I have to use the washroom. So I go to the customer washroom, and it's locked. It's not locked. It's out of service because they're cleaning it. I'm like, shit, man. So I go into the employee washroom, and I do a number 2 and everything, and I flood the toilet. And I'm God. Oh, fuck, I go, this thing is it's done. It was bad. It was to the edge. I think I've done this 4 times already in the store. But this one was good because literally an hour later, I go downstairs and someone in the back room is like, someone flooded the employee washroom. And I started freaking dying. I'm like, oh, shit, that was me. And he's like, I'm like, excuse me? And he's like, yeah, someone flooded the toilet. It's really bad. And it smells like crap upstairs. And I'm like, oh, shit, that was so me. So, literally months later, I told somebody I actually flooded the toilet, and they were dying. It's happened so many times in the store where I don't understand why they don't operate washrooms that can actually flush and provide power that can suck it up, and not like some minor easy flush and it just doesn't do anything. But it was pretty funny because when I went to the back room, I did never expect an employee to actually mention about the washroom when I was there, and I started laughing. I was like, oh boy. I was sweating that day. But
did they suspect you, or did you just get away with it until you eventually confessed?
Oh no, I wait until no one's in the washroom and I walk out.
Oh my god.
I don't tell them. Are you kidding me? Excuse me, I flooded your toilet and I need a plunger. Can you help me? No way, man. I got a company shirt on. It's like, no way. Screw that, man. Freaking. Or even on Saturday, I was about to tell a customer to F off because how annoying is it that people leave the buggies in the middle of the aisle? Does that occur with you, Nima? Grocery stores there where they leave it at the end of the one end of an aisle, and they walk all the way down to grab a product, and then they go all the way back up.
It's got wheels. Push it with you. How hard is that?
What are you, in a freaking workout diet here, or what the heck's going on here? Like, it's my biggest. Oh, I bite my lip when I'm at work and I have to see people so stupid. Go with your buggy. Like, it makes no sense to me. Absolutely no sense.
Go with your buggy. That's a motto to live by.
Well, what's the point, man? Like, I see people like these. You guys have like those Uber shoppers, whatever, like online shoppers.
Yeah.
That go on the road.
Yeah.
Oh my
I've
god.
never used that service myself because I don't really trust other people to bring me my groceries, and I'm not lazy. My laziness does not outweigh how cheap I am, and the idea of paying another person a fee to shop for me, I'm not quite lazy enough or rich enough to think that's a good decision.
It's so bad. I don't want to say the store that I service just for confidentiality, but a person shopped for a customer. It ended up being the president of the company. She out of stocked half the order. She or he, I'm not sure who it was, but
oh my god,
this resulted in a massive tour of the store, and they came all week. The store manager was on holidays, and like she had to come off holidays to make sure like to come address and everything. You don't know, like these online shoppers, you don't know who it can be. But my point is that they don't shop what they're supposed to. They don't grab everything that's available in the store, and like you'd be surprised what these guys do. They're on time, so they just pick anything. They rush, they go. They don't, when it's fruits and vegetables, they don't care if your meat's green, black, or purple. They grab it and that's it. It's very rare you'll get people who actually care about shopping. They make massive tip though. I know a few people who have been tipped like $50 to $100.
My thing, man. Why do I want to tip somebody to do a task I could easily do for myself?
Yeah, and he was like, "Yeah, I agree with you."
Well, I don't know.
Crazy.
I mean, during this this whole COVID thing, I've used that quite a bit. Like the what do you call it? People shopping for, but it's not people shopping. You go to the store and you pick out what you want. But I agree with you. I mean, I try to do like when it comes to vegetables and fruit, I want to pick that up myself. But I mean, the stuff that's like in cartons and shit. I mean, you know. Who cares? I got shit to do. If someone else can do it, I'm happy to pay.
Well, I want to offer a huge
online grocery actually, but there's like different ways. We have there was one I used to work at called Grocery Gateway, and that was actually very well organized. It was specifically just for online groceries, and that when I worked there, it did almost like $1 million a week. Unbelievable, man! Like and that was when it first started out. When I helped set it up when I was working at this grocery chain, and it's grown big time. Online grocery is massive. You'd be surprised how much it does a week and how many people actually prefer to buy online now. Huh. And with the pandemic, it has massively increased it.
Okay, like, I bet
people's thinking is way different now. People are more accustomed now because of the pandemic, because they're home and everything, to actually buy online as opposed to going to grocery stores. It's insane.
See, I live in Florida, so we haven't worried about the pandemic in Florida. At least my politicians haven't in about a year. So it is what it is. But I want to offer a huge thanks to everyone who tuned in today, participated in the chat. For everyone watching on YouTube, make sure you realize you can also subscribe to the audio-only podcast, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, Podbean, wherever you get your pods, you can subscribe to the audio version, which is nice. You can take us with you in the car, on walks, all that good stuff. And if you're listening to the audio, keep in mind you can watch us on YouTube. You can either watch us live when we broadcast, or you can catch the video replay a little bit later on. Huge thanks to Nima Tavale-Rudsari. Nima, thank you so much. And let people know where they can find your work and where they can find your excellent pod.
Well, thank you very much. Well, if they want to follow me on Twitter, it's at Nimatav ROOD. If they want to follow Inter News at a speed and level that is kind of high even for me this month is insane. It's only 20 days into June. I'm exhausted, but I'm not going to complain. Yes, sempreinter.com and the Italian Football Podcast, patreon.com/TIFP or at ItaFootPod on Twitter.
Really good stuff. And for those who missed the beginning of the episode, we also had Carlo Garganese on, who is also on the Italian Football Podcast with Nima. So make sure you follow Carlo as well. Jerry, thank you as always, sir. You'd mentioned a little bit earlier a piece you were working on Lazio, and you've also been pretty active on Serpents of Madonnina. So where can people find your work?
J Mancini 8. That's pretty much it. It's the same thing every time I talk about what I'm writing, but I'm on holidays this week, so
nice.
I'm debating if I want to write or not for this week. I've been trying to come to like an agreement with myself that I should just turn off Twitter and like sports for like a month and just get away from everything and just go back to.
You'll go crazy. You'll have fun for like a day and then you'll miss everything. I guarantee you.
That's the problem. That's the problem. Like I need to learn how to separate. It's so bad because Twitter becomes way over like controlling, and like I don't know how to like not separate myself, which is not good.
No, it's not good. Mental health always comes first.
Amen to that. Amen to that. Well, you guys can follow me at Alex Donno on Twitter. You can check me out, of course, on this pod, working on a couple of other projects, should be able to announce very soon. So we will talk to you guys again on another episode of the Calcio Connection podcast. Ciao.